Hello. This is the new link for Thursday Public Policy Talks. We have a new link and we have the registration. As thanks for registering once again. Gonna have a good close-knit conversation this morning. We're going to start about a minute later than we normally start due to the registration, due to having the new link. Get everybody accustomed to this new meeting ID. All right, our focus today is going to be at the state level, the Gold Dome. We're going to pick out a few things to talk about at the Gold Dome, have a conversation around the Gold Dome, the state level. All right, it is 8:30 on the dot. We are going to start in just a couple of minutes. Welcome in, everyone. Good morning. All right, I have the stopwatch on. I got to time it because we only have approximately 25 to 27 minutes for this conversation this morning. All right. Says, Brother Melvin Colvin, are you in? There he is. All right. Saw that name change right there. Good morning, Melvin, President and CEO, ABC.
Good morning, brother.
Right.
Public policy talks, no doubt.
Y'all are coming in. Thank y'all for coming in. It is 8:31. Y'all starting in approximately 2 minutes. 2 minutes. All right. I see one of the board members out there, Brother Calvin Maddox. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, Marquis.
Good morning. All right, y'all. We are almost underway. 1 minute. 1 minute. Have this morning conversation focused around the Gold Dome today. The Gold Dome, where you have representation. ABB is there each and every day. Our lobbyist, Deanna Harris, is there representing us. All right, y'all, we're going to jump right into it. Advancing Black Businesses is the ABC, Atlanta Black Chambers Public Policy Advocacy Organization. We work closely with the Georgia Coalition of Black Chambers also. We have a major event coming up. You probably saw the newsletter, February the 26th at the Truist Plaza. Please go to the latest newsletter to see that. Advancing Black Business at advancingblackbiz.org. This is our website. Talks a little bit about us, talks about who we are as Advancing Black Business, a 501c4 organization. Our focus is to educate you on the public policy issues, survey you, build an infrastructure, engage, and actually put out research and talk about existing research in and around Black business owners and the Black community. Again, you can go to advancingblackbiz.org. You can also donate. We are a 501c4 nonprofit organization. We accept donations. We accept those fives, those tens, those 100s. You can go press the donate button and donate to our organization. We have a few events that are coming up. Two major events for Advancing Black Businesses coming up. One is on June the 3rd. We are having our golf tournament at Top Golf. Golf tournament, I did say a golf tournament at Top Golf. That is on June the 3rd. That's the first Monday in June. Set your calendars. You're going to hear more information about this. This is just a save the date verbal announcement on that. You'll see that in the ABC newsletter in the coming probably 30 days or less. We also have the DC fly-in. I mentioned our DC fly-in last week. That is during the Congressional Black Caucus week, the annual legislative conference. That is the DC fly-in. We'll be going to DC September the 12th through the September the 15th. You'll see some literature come out with that as soon as we get it all finalized. The CBC just announced the date about a week and a half ago, but September the 12th through September the 15th. We will be in DC. Had a great time last year. I know I saw Brian McBroom on here. He was with us last year with a couple of others that I saw on here. Going to have a great time in DC. We're going to talk a little bit about before we bring Dr. Keila Taylor on. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the state legislation that's out right now. We're going to focus on the Gold Dome today. We have a few legislations out that we're looking at, that we're monitoring. One we're always monitoring is the state budget. The state budget this year, there is approximately a revenue estimate of somewhere around $37 billion, $37.5 billion that actually went through the House. It's an amended fiscal year bill budget, House Bill 915. And we will be putting some of this in the chat so you can actually see that. Some of the high points of that budget, if we think about how we can do business based on what money is put in the budget. There are some indirect ways of doing business with the state. There are some direct ways of doing business with the state. We talked about the Team Georgia. Please look up the Team Georgia website. We're going to be actually having them on the ABC side in the coming days, in the coming months, to talk to you about contracting. But there are a few budget items I do want to mention. As $23.9 million is designated for rural workforce housing programs aimed at expanding the availability of workforce housing. You may see that in the chat in just a moment. $250 million for low interest loans to the Georgia Fund. That Georgia Fund is actually funds wastewater infrastructure and the development of local communities. There's also a $100 million economic development initiative through the Regional Economic Business Assistance Program. And that is another assistance program for companies that are moving here in Georgia. When you see companies moving here in Georgia, especially the larger companies, this program is set aside to help buy land, help build the infrastructure. This is a good recruitment tool for that. Also, let me see if I had anything else in my notes. The Georgia Conference of Black Mayors. And the reason I talked about those three areas of focus in that budget, we're going to start working closer with the Georgia Conference of Black Mayors. There, if you did not know, we definitely have the Black Mecca, the city of Atlanta, but there's over 80 other Black mayors in this state. So we're going to be engaging those Black mayors. What we found through research of one of our board of directors is that Omar Ali discovered that in those cities in the state of Georgia, they're not doing a lot of contracting with Black businesses. So we're going to engage those 80 plus cities around this state. We're going to start having those conversations with those mayors, those city councils through the Georgia Conference of Black Mayors. I had a great conversation with the executive director of the Georgia Conference of Black Mayors just a short time ago. We're going to engage them. We're going to take you as you send over those capability statements. Thank you for the ones who sent over those capability statements. Please send those capability statements to me, your businesses. I want to be ready to rock and roll, I call it, when I get in front of those legislators, when I get in front of those departments at the state, the local, and really the federal levels. That's what those capability statements are for really that federal level. So as we get, and as Melvin and I engage, as leaders of the ABC and ABB engage those officials that are contracting officers that make those decisions, we want to be readily available to hand over your information. But Dr. Keila Taylor, chair of the ABC Governmental Affairs, what's going on with the ABC Governmental Affairs?
Good morning, Marquis, and thank you for this platform. So I kind of scrolled through the attendance, and I'm familiar with a lot of people on the call, but there are some that I'm not too familiar with and who may not be too familiar with me. So I wanted to take this opportunity and just share some highlights in my entrepreneurial journey, as I think it's important that they know who's leading them in this ABC governmental affairs chair capacity. So, and what steered me in this direction. So I'll be brief, but I just wanted to, share that my dream business, it became my worst nightmare as I experienced modern day oppression in Black entrepreneurship. And I experienced greatly the aftermath of COVID, as we all did. And as an entrepreneur, I experienced depression just as recent as 2021. I had a salon suite business, for many of you that know. I had put $600,000 into a 10,020 square foot facility that I did not own. I like to share that I was young, dumb, and a bit too ambitious. I was 29 years old when I did this. But we wound up living out this lease for 6 years. And at renewal, I was smarter and I was ready for the lease negotiations. And when it was time for lease negotiations, in so many words, those landlords, which happened to be 3 white guys, in so many words, they were like, shut the fuck up, nigger, or get out. But that's the tonality that we were being handled in throughout the duration of that lease. And I signed a lease that held me liable to some pre-existing deficiencies that was there long before I ever signed the lease, that, ate away at my profits. So it was time to make an audacious decision. I had a talk with my business partner, who's my sister, and I'm like, do we stay? It's gonna be hard if we stay, because the challenges are gonna persist. It's gonna be hard if we go, because the revenue stops. And we were doing $500,000 in revenue. So we were doing revenue, but we weren't profiting because of those deficiencies eating away. So we made the very audacious decision to non-renew the lease. Well, guess what? We got sued. And we got sued for the HVAC, which were deficiencies that were, again, pre-existing long before I signed that lease, but it held me liable. So in the midst of getting sued, all of this took place in 2021. In the midst of getting sued, my condo went into foreclosure. And I knew that it was going to get hard. I just didn't forecast that it was going to get this hard. Additionally, I got audited by the IRS. But I had been audited 3 times as an adult, which that stripped me of my hard-earned wealth. And to be honest, like, I'm still recovering from all of this. I am still in recovery mode. So throughout that settlement process, I felt like my attorney was also, kicking me while I was down. And I said to her, settling this lawsuit, well, let me just back up and say this. They sued me, I countersued them. I had a strong chance of winning, but they drugged me out in litigation. And they were able to do that because those white boys' money was way longer than mine. So I had to settle. I had to surrender, because then my attorney started getting in my pockets, right? So I said to her, this settling, it just don't set well with me. And, I told her, I said, to hell with entrepreneurship. I need to become an attorney. I'm in the wrong industry. And she said to me that, attorneys are, these were her words, attorneys, they're the peons, they're the minions that I don't want to, they fight the law. I want to get into politics and I want to make and change the law. And I began to show up at the Capitol. I had a talk with Melvin. And at the time I was the past present chair. I was the chair of the YEC, the Young Entrepreneurs Collaborative. And I knew that I would be a better fit in a civic engagement role, in a political role, which, Dr. Adoma, she gave me her blessing to become the chair of the Governmental Affairs Committee. So I took it a step further, and I also joined the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus as an intern. At that time, I was 37 years old, interning with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. But I was coming back with a vengeance. And I needed to learn from the inside. So I discovered that I only saw a sprinkle of Black people in these sessions. like, and they were the Black people in the seats at the, basically I was showing up at the committee sessions, at the committee hearings. And it wasn't too many of us in these rooms during legislative session, learning about these committee hearings. At times, I was the only Black person in those rooms. We're not present. So it's 2024. The odds are still against us as Black people. As chair of the Atlanta Black Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee, I aim to advocate for Black business owners by creating awareness through civic engagement. I want to take this opportunity to share how I got civically engaged in, and I implore that you all do the same. And it's very important that, I continue to bring awareness, but in the simplest terms. And, it starts with what we're doing right now. It starts with showing up to these platforms. So some of you have already heard from our co-chair, Hayden Singleton, which we are outlining a very, very informative agenda for 2024. We're still ironing out the kinks. So quality takes a little longer. We're not quite ready to present it, but I'm super excited. We got some strong events that we're laying out for the entire 2024. So stay tuned. Thanks, Marquis.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Keila Taylor, for that testimonial and that roadmap of how you walked into public policy. Thanks so much. We're talking about the state capitol, the Gold Dome, a couple of other pieces of legislation. There's a House Bill 1180. This is big, y'all, and it's the film industry. This legislation would increase the minimum spend requirements for production companies from 500,000 to 1 million to get the actual 10% tax credit. This bill will actually increase the amount. And as we know, the film tax credits are very, very instrumental in driving the actual film industry in the state. So they are looking at increasing that. Also, I do want to frame this next conversation, and this will be the last conversation. We may even have time to open it up for a conversation. Just to frame this quick conversation, there's a rally that's going on down at the state capitol today. From that time at the rally, and where is my share button? Where is my share? Let me go back to the presentation. A couple of weeks ago, I put on a presentation centered around wealth in America by race. That wealth in America by race. This is the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances. Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances. This is where the wealth in America is measured. It's measured in real estate. It's measured in consumer durables. It's measured in corporate equities and mutual funds. The stock market is developing the pensions and the defined contribution pensions, which are your pensions once you retire from work. It's measured in private business. Private business. If you see that 0.37, that is the wealth. That is the assets. That is the amount of Black businesses. That's $370 million that we have in America. Billion dollars, 370 billion. You can see where white businesses are worth $14 trillion, $14 trillion. So the wealth in America, we have 5% of the wealth in America, whereas whites have 81%. We are 13% of the population. That is a deficit. That is a deficit. When you look at our communities in Atlanta, there's a major difference in what Bankhead looks like and what Buckhead looks like. There's a major difference on the north end where the Black communities are, and on the north end, the south end where the white communities are, and the white communities in the north end. There's a major difference in the Black community when it comes to where we live in our communities. This tells the story right here. This tells the story, everyone. If we go up, I'm going to go up just a couple of slides, and we look at this graph. This graph it talks about white household wealth is 20 times that of Black and Hispanics. If you look at that chart, you see the blue line where that increases over time. You see, if you can see my cursor, you see this period right here. This is a dip in white wealth. That was around the recession in the 2006 through 2009 recession. You see where it went up. There was a lot of money that was thrown into, they call it quantitative easing. Money was thrown into the stock market. Money was thrown into the stock market. If you look at this gap right here, where there's a dip, that was the pandemic. There was a small dip. And if you were paying attention, you had the PPP program, but the first companies to go to DC, and this is where public policy actually steps in. The first companies were the airline companies, and some of the Fortune 500 companies went to DC. They sent their lobbyists. Even their president and CEOs were in DC lobbying for money, So if you're sitting at $370 billion versus you're sitting at about 200, Walmart is the Fortune 1 company. They're sitting well over $300 billion in revenue. They were in DC asking for money. So why aren't we asking for money? Well, we are asking for money. There is a reparations rally. If y'all didn't know, y'all, the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus has a commission, y'all, that there is. Let's see if I can put this on the screen. Raquel, if you can put that link in the chat. Let me see how quick I can find this link. There is a House Bill 955. A House Bill 955. This is going to create, this is the actual law right here on the screen. There's a Georgia Equity and Fairness Commission Act. House Bill 955 is, as you know, a reparations bill. It is at the state level. A lot of us have heard about HR 40 in the federal level. And when we talk about reparations, when we talk about the actual gap, that racial wealth gap, that's sitting into the trillions. If you talking to a stratification economists, they say that's somewhere around that $20 trillion gap, a $20 trillion gap. So there's been a lot of conversation around closing that gap. You have a lot of conversation around access to capital and closing that gap. You have organizations that are talking about a $5 million fund, and we're looking to close that racial wealth gap. But measure that $5 million, measure that $100 million commitment, measure those commitments, and that does not come close to actually closing the gap. That is a great thing to have those $5 million funds, we have those $100 million funds. We're supporting those companies that are doing that. We're supporting those banks that are looking at the lending processes and helping out our businesses. We're supporting all of that. But when we talk about closing that racial wealth gap, if we're going to be a single, when I say a single issue voter, that's what we need to support. I'm going to be talking more about that. I know that's a mouthful for everyone to think about, but I want you to take a serious look at bills like this on the state level, on the local level. The Fulton County government, Fulton County Commission has started a commission to study the effects of slavery, study the effects of Jim Crow, study the effects of the civil rights movement. They started meeting actually last year. So there's several reports coming out of the state of California, coming out some cities such as, let's see, Asheville, North Carolina has one. There's a couple of cities in Illinois. So I wanted to bring this forth for you because the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus is taking up this issue. This House Bill 955, the Georgia Fair Equity and Fairness Commission Act. There's a rally today from 1 to 5. The Legislative Black Caucus leaders will be there. So just wanted to let you know and put you on put this on your mind. So as we talk about growing the Black community, as we talk about that slide, I had a slide a couple of weeks ago called the Road to Zero Wealth, that 2053. We got to start talking about serious issues centered around this and talk about collective issues. We have very successful Black businesses in this city, around this nation, but when we talk about that collective number of Black businesses, when we talk about the average from the census is $62,000 in revenue is our average revenue for our businesses. You compare that to white businesses, they're sitting at just over 550,000 in average revenue for their businesses. So that's the gap right there when we talk about our businesses. We have to talk about ways of closing that, and ways of closing that is closing that in a manner of what created the gap, and that's public policy created that gap. So we got to talk about public policy initiatives, transformational public policy issues that are going to close that gap. So again, House Bill 955, Georgia Equity and Fairness Commission Act. All right, y'all, we're sitting at 8:55. We're actually right on time for closing time. Does anybody out there have any comments? I mean, we still have this small group. We can have these conversations. We got about 2 minutes before we close. Anybody out there have any comments on today's topics, on something that's hot going on out there now in public policy? Anybody out there? Just unmute and just say what you need to say.
Hey y'all.
Hi, good morning. Go ahead, Martina.
Hey y'all, this is Montina Young Fraser here, and I'm actually super excited to be here, all of everything that's going on. I was a little familiar with the reparations committee that Fulton County has. One other thing is I'm in a lot of the rooms with legislators because I'm part of Council for Quality Growth. We have to be also in these rooms because when they're talking about the 180 million, 130 million, 120 million projects, we need to make sure that we are advocating on behalf of the small businesses that are not in these rooms to have access to these opportunities so that the primes aren't just saying they're doing these good faith outreach efforts. So again, I'm happy to hear about what's going on and just ready to serve in public policy. I do some work through GMSDC. We were advocating on the Hill, a couple months ago. So I'm really happy to be here to serve.
Thank you so much for those comments. Really appreciate it. I heard former Commissioner Marlene Foscue. Go right ahead. We've got 1 minute.
Okay. All right, this is real quick. Up in Gwinnett, the governor had just signed a bill in order to let a new city to be formed in Gwinnett called Mulberry, and everything was fast tracked, and it impacts economics desperately up here as far as for that city. And because he said a minute, that's why I'm rushing. But it went fast track. There was no fiscal study done. There was no going behind the scenes. It was pushed through from our local House of Representatives, Chuck Abstration, and then to the Senate and stuff. And so if it can happen in Gwinnett, of course it can happen anywhere. And we knew what was going on with Atlanta, but it didn't even take all the steps when you think about what happened with Buckhead. It didn't go through those steps. This went fast forward from one representative to one senator to straight to the governor. Now what happens is in November, it's going to be on the ballot, and I can give more information at another meeting. But I just wanted you to know what was happening up in Gwinnett with a new city being formed.
All right. Thank you, former Commissioner. All right, we have a couple people with their hands raised. We do have an extra minute. Anybody else have a comment? All right. Now let's see Sterling.
Hey, everybody, jumping in real quickly on the reparations conversation. Yes, and to everything that's been said already, Fulton County has their commission that's been working on this for the last year and some change. And there's still a lot of active discussion happening, namely around the dispute on what form any sort of reparations should be taking place around. And so we'll definitely need entrepreneurs and those like yourselves who are plugged into the policy space to give input and insight into some of those things. There also is a different committee working side by side with that commission from the nonprofit social sector space and the philanthropic arm, being able to amplify this conversation. And so I will definitely send over information, Marquis, when the time comes for opportunities for to plug this group into some of that conversation as well. Just wanted to put that on you all's radar.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate those comments. All right, y'all. This has been the public policy talks for this Thursday. It is 8:59. 8:59. We went over just a couple of minutes, but thank you for joining. Look forward to seeing you next week. We had the survey in the chat. If you have not taken that survey, take that quick 2-minute survey. We need more respondents. We'll be talking about those results in the coming weeks of that survey. Thanks a lot for joining. Advancing Black Businesses Thursday Public Policy Talks. Y'all have a great rest of the week and great weekend. All right, y'all. Enjoy the rest of this month, Black History Month. We are in Black History Month. Y'all have a good one. All
Thank you,
right.
everyone. Have a great day.
Melba, I see your name. I see your hands up. What's up, Melba? Already went down. There we go.
A clapping for the good information that was shared. This is
Thank
good
you.
stuff.
All right. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, Melba. All right. Let's see one hand. That's Wilson's hand up. I know yours was up just a moment ago and you went on mute. Did you want to make a comment? We're still here.
I just want to know how I can help from any standpoint, volunteering, whatever.
Send me an email at info@advancing Black businesses. We're getting ready to develop some auxiliary committees for advancing Black businesses in a few different areas. So send me an email if you don't mind.
Can you repeat that email for me?
That is info@advancing Black biz, advancingblackbiz.org. That could have been in the chat, but if not, that's it.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, take that survey, y'all. Take that survey. Akita Patterson, how are you? Board member of ABC. Thank you for your support.
Great morning to you.
All right. Thank you, Raquel, for working behind the scenes once again. Y'all have a good day.